Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, I'll be playing in the WZ-116 F3. Up until today, I would have said that this is probably the worst tier 10 heavy for you to get your hands on, for multiple reasons. The tank is large, had very poor turret armor, not very fast, no gun depression, and the accuracy of its 490 alpha made it absolutely unplayable and unenjoyable. But in the latest update of the game, Wargaming has absolutely overhauled this tank and turned everything that I just complained about upside down. They buffed its mobility, they buffed its armor, and most importantly, they gave it two guns. It now has an auto-reloading 420 alpha, and it also has a buffed 490 alpha. In today's video, I'll be letting you know everything you're going to want to about the 116, and why it is now potentially my favorite tier 10 in the game. The best way to think of this auto-reloading gun is the same way the Kron's gun works, right? The Kron features a 3 shell, which has really good DPM on paper, 2,648, but that's only if you shoot it on single shot shell 3. Nobody does that. Even if you watch me play the Kron, 90% of the games I play, I go bam, 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 and shoot all 3 shells. Because, obviously, if I have the opportunity to bleed an enemy player, I'm going to. Shell 1 on the Kron has a 13.13 second reload for 410 damage. If we make our way over to the 116 F3, it has 420 damage with a 12.84 second reload. That means that at least on single shot, the 116 has more DPM than the Kron. However, that's it. On shell 2 and 3, it's got flat worse DPM than the Kron. Instead of having a 6-second reload, it's got a 9-second. So at most effective, you're sitting 2100 DPM in this tank, where the Kron has 2600. That is a big disadvantage for this vehicle. However, there are some big advantages that this tank does have. First of all, AP standard, that's huge. Everybody hates APCR, and it's one of the big downsides of the Kron. Even more of a big downside is the fact that the Kron doesn't have pushing potential. First of all, it doesn't have reactive, which the 116 F3 does, but also the Kron doesn't really have good hull armor. The 116 actually has pretty good hull armor. So basically what Wargaming has done here is they've turned the Kron into a frontline brawling heavy, and that sounds fun, and trust me, it is fun. I have had the joy of playing this vehicle for 4 games, and even in the defeat, I still managed to deal 3,600 damage, and you're about to see the 3 victories, so I'm not going to spoil the results by clicking on those games. So yeah, I actually have to say, this vehicle is surprisingly fun. The weird thing about it is that on paper, you'd think it's awful, because its base dispersion is 0.34. That's actually worse than a 183, because you have to remember I'm using refined gun. But because this gun has really good on-movement dispersion values and a fairly good aiming time, the actual base dispersion doesn't feel bad. And it's a great example of how not everything is based off of just dispersion. It's mainly based off of your on-movement dispersion and aiming time. And because of that, it allows this tank to be really, really fun. So let's talk about what exactly got buffed other than the new gun. And the biggest one is armor. This here is the previous 116 F3 being aimed at by an M60 running enhanced armor using calibrated shells firing gold. This is 339 millimeters of premium, as we can see. And you'll notice that the M60 can cut right through the 116's turret cheeks, because it's 237 millimeters of nominal armor, which equates to about 307 when firing heat. That's it. Even at most, it's going to be like 314, 313. It means that no matter where you drive the 116, as long as you have half a brain cell, you load gold, and you pen it right through the turret cheeks with standard or gold. And that's a real bummer. However, the new 116, it's a lot different. This is the exact same M60 using premium shells with 339 mils of pen against the 116 using enhanced armor. You'll notice it now has 255 millimeters of nominal protection on the front turret. Yeah, that's a big buff. And what that means is that the 116 is now not able to be penned by mediums really at all on the turrets. Now, sure, heavies will still be able to cut through you. If we get something that is pretty good heat pen, yeah, you'll cut through the turret. But it's a heck of a lot stronger than it used to be. And that is going to allow the 116 to get away with many more plays. Not only that, but the mobility got quite buffed. We can see the power to weight ratio went from 13.3 and 9.5 to now sitting at a power to weight of 10 and 14. It's not a huge buff, but it's still got a power to weight buff, and that is quite nice because it's going to allow the tank to be just a little bit more enjoyable, and that's actually pretty sweet. The on-movement dispersion hasn't really changed so I'm aware. We can see that we are even using the auto-reloading gun. On-movement dispersion is the same. But because the on-move is really good, it actually doesn't matter too much. It's quite an enjoyable experience for the most part. So with that being said, let's take a look at these games that I've played in the vehicle. I don't need to keep you guys waiting anymore. Let's start off with my first game on Mirage. Mirage is an okay map, and I actually like it a lot, especially for heavies, because Mirage allows you to get really aggressive, and it allows you to pump out shells into the enemy players. I'll turn down my game audio a little bit, because it seems pretty loud there. What are we going to do here? Well, up against us, we have an FE2-5, BM6 Yo, 777, 57 Heavy. Wow, they have a lot of dangerous Tier 10 heavies. You can already see that mobility, though. This tank feels a heck of a lot more mobile than it used to be. In fact, we actually just about tied the 777 into position. There you go. Nice shot into the enemy 907 for 440 damage. Something that's really interesting about this vehicle is that the auto-reloading gun and the 490 Alpha gun have the exact same model, or at least to what I could see. What that means is that you will never be able to tell what gun the enemy player is using, if they're using the auto-reloader or the 490. That's a bit of a bummer, because you could just think, oh, they low-rolled me, or, you know, you could high-roll with this gun and get a potential 490 roll with a 420 Alpha, and somebody might think, oh, he doesn't have another shell, and then bam, they hit you back again and again. We've already managed to deal 1,600 damage in this game. We bled out the enemy 777, we got a nice shot into the enemy 907, and the crossing 215B. And sure, we can see the reload is not great. You have to wait and wait and wait for these shells to come back into the vehicle. And you're just sitting there thinking to yourself, oh my god, can we get these shells back, please? You're waiting over 30 seconds. But once you get those shells, again, you're a pretty scary enemy. I have reactive armor on this tank, which means that I can block any damage received. And then in return, I can take a 1,700 health 777 and bring that player down to 320 health. That now has placed me over 3,000 damage in this battle. And because this tank has reactive, it means even if I do get pushed, I can still, you know, negate a lot of the damage I've received. Pair that with the huge juicer of hit points being at 2,600 because I'm running a large sandbag, and yeah, this thing seems pretty good. So we have the enemy Eric concept in front of us, and that thing's armor buff is actually pretty good, as we can see. That armor's pretty troll. We get two shells into the Eric, and we back into cover. We're now up to 3,800 damage at this point, and we're just going to chill, and we are going to wait. 3 more seconds, we'll have another shell for that Eric concept 1. I see that the 2 and 5, he can't shoot me, so we're going to poke, we're going to aim in a shell, boom, nice 380 damage shell. Well, we're up to 4,200 now, which is pretty sweet. And we go back to reloading. Alright, well, 3, 2, 1. This time I'm not going to poke, even though I do have plenty of health too. It's just smarter to wait for my shells to reload. I've got my reactive back. I'll make an aggressive play, because I see a full health AFK Yo in the back. And that, to me, is a big old juicer of hit points. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1... and we have our shells. So now I have the ability to move up. Well, we can see the Yo, we can see the 2 and 5B. I'd love to be able to get a shell into that 2 and 5B, but not realistically. The Eric bounces me. That was just a hope. However, the 777 thinks I'm a single shot. Bye-bye. I'm not sure how the 777 came to that conclusion, because I literally shot them 3 times in a row when they were trying to back up. So I'm not even going to give them the benefit of the doubt. That was clearly just a bad play. However, at this point, I'm going to continue moving up. I was going to ram the Eric, but player got shot by our teammate. And what I'm going to do now is wait 3 more seconds for my final shell. And this is where auto-reloaders are great. There's 470 into the enemy Yo. There's 440 into the enemy Yo. And 419. And that just put us another almost 1,300 damage to our total. So we are now sitting at 5,597 damage. We do end up clearing this enemy 2 and 5B as well, with a super easy shot right into the side. So even though this vehicle does have terrible levels of on-movement dispersion, it really doesn't matter. As you can see, the gun felt completely fine. We hit all of the shots we shot, and we did a lot of damage. We blocked a decent amount, and had a super simple victory. That game alone really illustrates where the 116 feels pretty enjoyable now. How about we play a game where I am shooting on single shot? There's always going to be a lot of people that try to say, oh, 2100 DPM is unplayable. But it's not really 2100 DPM, and that's where a lot of people get confused. The thing is, you have 3 shells. That's 1260 damage. So what you actually have to do is you have to pull out the calculator, and you have to do 1260, and then add that to the 2100 DPM. And you will get 3,360 potential damage per minute, because you can shoot 3 shells and then have the 2000 DPM. So in a realistic situation, it means that really you'll be able to beat any vehicle against you. And if that's not enough persuasion, you also feature reactive, meaning that you can actually not only increase your hit point pool, but then also out DPM whatever it is with your clip. So, in other words, this tank is a lot better than people will probably give it credit for. I hate when people sit there and they say, oh, because a tank doesn't have good DPM, it's bad. That's just not true. It's a lie, and this gameplay here is going to showcase that super quickly. We've already dealt 1700 damage in this game, and I haven't even broken a sweat. We haven't even bled a single hit point. E100 is going to push out in the open. I'm going to put on reactive. That tank has 660 alpha. Well, not anymore. Rolls 450 because our reactive takes away all that damage. So it's just kind of wild what you can get away with reactive armor. So at this point, we are now trying to sweep up some extra damage. The enemy team has 3 tank destroyers and a full health IS-8, which we haven't really seen until now. Well, there's the enemy WZ-113. And again, look at the mobility on this tank. Like, this thing is surprisingly quick. We have the enemy 268, we have the enemy IS-8 behind us, and there's a Foch right behind us as well. I don't really care about the Foch. We're just going to keep on moving up here. Yep, Foch gets cleared. Only had 1 hit point as well. So we got 3 shells. The great thing about auto reloaders is that you stack damage repositioning. So in the time it took me to cross, we got 3 shells. There's 366 into the enemy WZ. There's 413 into the lower plate, and 449. Just like that, we elevated ourselves from 1700 damage to 3000. Think about that. We just got 1300 damage. Boom, boom, boom. And now we're over 3k. And now we just move up again. Skip a little bit ahead in the replay. We got the IS-8 over here. Again, the mobility on this thing is actually amazing. This tank really takes the things that I've been complaining about with the Kron and removes them. I don't know how many videos I've made saying, God, I wish the Kron was faster, but I have made so many, and this tank is a great example why. The problem with the Kron is not the fact that it doesn't have pushing potential. It's not the fact that it has low DPM when you dump the clip. It's the fact that it takes you forever to get in and out of position. And even though it goes 34, it's still not enough to really get to where you want to go. But this tank, having that mobility and pushing potential, really allows it to actually feel enjoyable. Even in this game, where I constantly dumped the clip at every single moment of opportunity I could, I still ended up dealing 4,600 damage. We ended up blocking 2,450 and acing the vehicle once again. But we're not done. Let's take a look at one final game, this one on one of the worst maps in Blitz, Malinovka. We start this battle by crossing all the way over to the heavy hill. And you know what? We beat our teammates up this hill. I not only beat my my Rhino up the hill. The Rhino is a fast tank. We beat the Rhino up the hill, but we absolutely smoked the Badger and even beat the 777. Yeah, this tank is just as fast as a 777. That's crazy. And again, that mobility is what really allows you to feel so nice because you're able to get into position and stop the enemy from making plays. Just like that, we've already managed to clean up 1,200 damage on that enemy 777. Our Badger unfortunately misses a shell, and I'm going to move up. Just like that, Rhino clears that player. 1 tier 10 is already gone, and the enemy T-22 decided to YOLO for some reason. Well, not for some reason. Average T-22 enjoyer. We're going to move up here. We got the enemy 183, we got the 268, and okay, the Yag fires a high explosive at me. Now I make a bit of a mistake here. I was waiting for my 3rd shell to get loaded. 3, 2, 1. See my reload? See how it says 0.0? Well, guess what? Even though it says 0, it still ate my frickin' shell. Yeah, you saw it. It said 0.0. I literally waited to the T for that shell to get loaded into my gun, and Wargaming still robbed me. I take it back. I didn't make a mistake. I thought that I had fired the shell before it was actually loaded. But very clearly, you guys saw it said 0 seconds. I got robbed. And that's really unfortunate because, as you can see, now I get to sit here and wait And wait, and wait. It's a bit of a bummer, because if I had been able to shoot this Yag, it might have allowed me to get just a little bit more damage because I would have been able to cross quicker. It's whatever. It's just a little bit cringe when you get screwed by RNG, or in that, I don't even know what I got screwed by. But either way, we got the 92E1, bounces me, and that's because, as I said, the turret armor is actually pretty good on this tank now. And we're going to use that great mobility to quickly move up. Again, if I was in a Kron right now, I would not be able to maneuver this quick. This tank, I'm already up to 40 kilometers per hour in. I mean, look at that. 40, 41, 42, 43. This is crazy. I love the mobility that this thing now features. And we're going to roll right around the corner because I know the T92E1's right here. We get a 448. I'm going to put on my reactive. 183 bounces me, 525 max roll, and then we get a high explosive into that 92. Just like that, we did 1,450 damage. And once again, now we are at 3,800 damage dealt. Think about that. We just put ourselves up to 3,800. Oh, boom, 4,100 damage now. There you go. Now we skip ahead a little bit. We got one shell loaded. We're waiting for our second shell. As we can see, that enemy 183 has an absolute boner for me. Bro cannot stop staring at me. So I'm not going to give him the time of day. I'm going to simply wait and wait and wait. Eventually, my teammates like the Badger and like my 62A are going to make a play. And bonk. There you go. Easy clear, easy pickup. We did 4,152 damage, blocked 2,400, and our team is going to clear that Conqueror out of the game. Just like that, our third victory, an incredibly easy farm. Yeah, this tank's great. It really is. And our third ace in a row. I can tell you that aces are going to be quite hard to pick up in the 116 because this tank is really fun. I was shocked with how good it was, but it shows just how much a change like this can make. The armor is great, the mobility is great, and the gun is great. I'm amazed that I'm saying this. Honestly, the 116 just went from like bad to super strong, maybe even OP with the fact that it's an auto reloader that also features reactive armor. I don't know. I'll have to play this tank more and fully express my opinions. But what I can say is this thing is insane, and if you have it, try it out. If you want to see more content like this, you know where to find it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.